I never thought a 12-year-old's hands could carry so much weight, but when I saw my younger brother standing over the unconscious body of a professional MMA fighter, the silence in that gym was louder than any roar of a crowd I'd ever heard. It wasn't just a lucky punch. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated consequence that changed our lives and left a champion face down on the mat in front of 20 witnesses. Now, as the legal threats are flying and the internet is losing its mind, I have to ask you all honestly. If someone is relentlessly bullying a child under the guise of training, and that child finally snaps, is the kid the hero or the villain? Tell me, would you have stepped in sooner, or would you have let the lesson play out exactly how it did? This whole nightmare started about 6 months ago when my little brother, Leo, decided he wanted to take up martial arts. Leo has always been a quiet kid, the kind who spends more time with his nose in a book than playing outside, but he'd been getting picked on at school, and thought learning how to defend himself would give him some much-needed confidence. I'm 10 years older than him, and since our dad isn't in the picture, I've always felt this massive responsibility to look out for him. Our mom works double shifts at the hospital, so it was mostly just me and Leo, and I wanted him to feel like he could stand tall. I did my research and found the Iron Cage, a gym that had a reputation for producing real talent. It was owned and operated by a guy named Victor, the Viper Volkov. Victor was a mid-tier pro, a guy who had some big wins in regional circuits and was known for his old-school toughness. At first, it seemed like the perfect fit. Victor was intense, sure, but I thought that's what Leo needed. Some discipline and a bit of grit. For the first few months, Leo loved it. He was learning the basics, getting stronger, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't looking at the floor when he walked. He would come home and show me his shadowboxing in the kitchen, his eyes bright with a fire I'd never seen before. But things started to shift once Victor realized that Leo actually had a natural talent for movement. Leo isn't big, but he's fast, incredibly observant, and he has this weird ability to predict where a strike is coming from. He'd be sparring with kids his own size and they couldn't touch him. He was like a ghost on the mats. Instead of nurturing that, Victor started to use Leo as a psychological punching bag. Maybe it was an ego thing, maybe he was jealous of how easily it came to Leo, but it began with demonstrations. Victor would call Leo to the center of the mat and use him to show the rest of the class how to execute a takedown or a submission. But he would do it with way more force than necessary. I'd watch from the bleachers, my stomach knotting up as I saw Leo gasping for air after being slammed into the mat, or wincing as Victor held an armbar just a second too long, waiting for that desperate tap-out that felt more like a plea for mercy than a sport. When I'd pull Victor aside after class, he'd just laugh it off with that gravelly, condescending voice of his. He'd say, "Kid's got a soft heart, I'm just hardening the shell. You want him to be a victim his whole life, or you want him to be a man?" I hated it, but Leo insisted on staying. He told me he didn't want to be a quitter, and he felt like if he walked away, the bullies at school would win. He started staying late, hitting the heavy bag until his knuckles bled, trying to get so good that Victor couldn't hurt him anymore. But over the next few weeks, the hardening process got worse. Victor started inviting his pro friends to the gym during the kids' sessions. They'd stand around the cage, drinking protein shakes, laughing and shouting while Victor put the kids through brutal drills that looked more like hazing than coaching. One of these guys was a rising star named Marcus the Hammer Stone. Marcus was everything wrong with the sport. Arrogant, loud, and he lived for social media clout. He started filming the practices, often catching Leo in embarrassing positions or getting overwhelmed, and posting them to his stories with captions like, "Teaching the little sheep how to be wolves," or "Watch this kid try to run." It was degrading. The atmosphere in the gym turned from a place of learning to a place of intimidation, where Leo was the designated target. Leo started coming home with bruises that didn't look like accidental training marks. He had a black eye one week and a bruised rib the next. He stopped talking about the techniques he learned and started talking about how much he hated Victor. How he could see the man's eyes light up whenever he caused Leo pain. I tried to convince him to switch gyms, but Leo was obsessed. He started watching hours of footage on counterpunching and timing. We even set up a makeshift gym in the garage where he would have me throw slow, looping kicks so he could practice stepping inside the arc. I didn't realize it then, but he was preparing for a war he knew was coming. He would spend hours analyzing Victor's old fight tapes on YouTube, pointing out how Victor always overcommit to his right-hand lead, and how he left his chin exposed when he got tired. I thought it was just a hobby, a way for a bullied kid to feel powerful, but Leo was studying Victor like a predator studies its prey. He stopped eating junk food, started waking up at 5 a.m. to run, and the quiet kid who liked books was replaced by a silent warrior with a 1,000-yard stare. The tension reached a boiling point last Tuesday. It was a sparring seminar day, and the gym was packed with parents, local fighters, and even some scouts. Marcus Stone was there, fresh off a big win, feeling himself and acting like he owned the place. Victor, clearly trying to impress his pro buddy and show off his tough love coaching style, decided to put on a show. He called Leo into the cage for what he called a light, sparring session. Now you have to understand the size difference. Victor is a 6'2", 200-pound professional athlete with years of cage time. Leo is a 5'4", 110-pound 7th grader. The sparring was a joke from the start. Victor was tagging Leo with stiff jabs, not enough to knock him out, but enough to make his head snap back and his eyes water. He was making him stumble, then mocking his footwork, calling him twinkle toes in front of everyone. The crowd of other students and parents was dead silent, the air thick with discomfort that no one dared to voice. Marcus was in the corner, holding his phone up, live streaming the whole thing to thousands of people, laughing as Victor knocked Leo's headgear sideways and told him to get up and be a man. I was on the verge of jumping the fence and pulling Leo out myself, my heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird, but then I saw something in Leo's eyes. It wasn't fear anymore. It was a cold, focused rage that I'd only seen in men twice his age. He was dodging better than he ever had. He was seeing the patterns, the way Victor's shoulder dipped before he jabbed, the way his weight shifted before he moved. Victor, frustrated that he couldn't land a clean, humiliating blow for the camera because this 12-year-old was suddenly making him miss, started getting sloppy. He was getting angry that he looked incompetent. He wound up for a heavy, devastating leg kick, the kind you'd throw at a grown man in a title fight to break his spirit. He wanted to sweep Leo off his feet, flip him in the air, and make him look ridiculous for the gram. And that is the exact moment everything changed. Before I tell you the rest of what happened in that cage, and the massive legal fallout that's currently tearing my family apart, I want you to stop right now. Think about everything I just described, the power imbalance, the months of bullying, the public humiliation on a live stream. Before I reveal how Leo reacted and the state Victor ended up in, I want you to pause and comment below. What would you have done if you were in my shoes watching your little brother get treated like that? Would you have stopped the fight earlier? Or did Victor deserve to face the consequences of his own arrogance? I really want to know if I'm crazy for being proud of what happened next, because the world is split right down the middle on this. So Victor throws this massive, swinging leg kick. It was a rookie mistake, born out of pure arrogance because he didn't respect his opponent enough to keep his defense up. He thought Leo would just cower or try to run away. Leo didn't move back. He didn't blink. Instead, he stepped into the pocket, perfectly timing the opening that Victor left when he committed his entire weight to that kick. Leo pivoted his hips exactly the way we'd practiced for hours in our garage, and he threw a crisp, straight right hand that landed flush on the point of Victor's chin. It was a perfect storm punch. Victor's own momentum was moving his head forward, right as Leo's fist connected with the force of 6 months of suppressed rage. There was this sickening crack that echoed through the entire gym, a sound like a dry branch snapping in winter. Victor's eyes went completely blank, rolling back into his head. His knees buckled instantly, and he fell forward like a felled tree, his face bouncing off the canvas without his arms even moving to break the fall. He was out cold before he even hit the floor, his body twitching slightly in that terrifying fencing response you see in bad knockouts. The silence that followed was terrifying. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Marcus Stone stopped filming, his jaw literally hanging open, his phone still aimed at a man who was now completely motionless. The other kids were frozen, their faces pale. Leo just stood there, his chest heaving, his knuckles red, looking down at the Viper, who was now nothing more than a heap of meat on the mat. I jumped the cage fence, not to congratulate Leo, but to grab him and get him out of there before the shock wore off and the anger took over. I knew the second Victor woke up, or his pro-friends realized what happened, it was going to be ugly. As I was pulling Leo away, Marcus finally found his voice and started screaming, saying it was a cheap shot, and that Leo was going to pay for it, that he'd destroyed a man's career. I didn't care. I got Leo into the car and drove home in total silence, the adrenaline making my hands shake on the steering wheel. Within an hour, the video Marcus had been live streaming was everywhere. 12-year-old Chaos Pro was trending on Twitter and Reddit. But the aftermath hasn't been a victory lap. Victor woke up in the hospital with a grade 3 concussion, a broken jaw, and a shattered ego that he can't seem to piece back together. He's now trying to sue our family for aggravated assault and loss of income, claiming that Leo assaulted him outside of the rules of the sparring session, even though it was Victor who called him into the cage and threw the first strike. He's banned us from the gym, obviously, and is using his influence to try to get Leo blacklisted from every youth tournament in the state. Marcus Stone is online every day, posting edited clips to make it look like Leo attacked Victor while he wasn't looking, trying to save his friend's reputation by painting my brother as some sort of out-of-control, violent delinquent. Our mom is terrified. She's worried about the legal fees and the possibility of Leo getting a record before he even hits high school. We had a meeting with a lawyer yesterday, a guy who specializes in sports law, and even he looked stunned when we showed him the unedited footage someone else from the gym had recorded. The lawyer told us that while it's technically mutual combat, in a gym setting, the fact that Victor is a licensed professional and Leo is a minor makes Victor look like a predator. However, the internet is a different beast entirely. We've had people showing up at our house, some cheering for Leo and others screaming that he's a danger. My brother hasn't left his room much, but when he does, he has this look of peace on his face that scares me and relieves me all at once. He told me yesterday, if I hadn't hit him, he would have eventually hit me hard enough to end my life. I just chose to end his career instead. The weight of that statement is something I carry every time I check the news. The local news stations have picked it up, and they're framing it as a failure of gym oversight. They're looking into Victor's past, and it turns out he had multiple complaints from other parents that were swept under the rug because of his status in the community. People are coming forward saying he's been a bully for years, and my brother was just the first one brave enough, or skilled enough, to shut him up. But the legal battle is going to be long. Victor's lawyers are arguing that because Leo had been secretly training specialized counters at home, it wasn't a standard training reaction, but a premeditated attack. It's ridiculous. But in the eyes of the law, everything is up for debate. My mom is working even more hours to cover the retainer for our lawyer, and I've started a GoFundMe just to keep us afloat, which of course sparked even more controversy online. Some people say we're profiting off violence, while others are donating thousands to the kid who beat the Viper. It's a circus. I catch Leo sometimes sitting in the garage, staring at the heavy bag. He doesn't hit it anymore. He says the fire is out. He doesn't feel the need to prove anything to anyone. But here's the thing that stays with me. Leo hasn't cried once. He hasn't apologized. He told me that for the first time in his life, he doesn't feel like a victim. He told me that when he saw Victor's eyes go blank, he felt like he'd finally closed the book on all the bullies who ever touched him. He showed a man who thinks he's a god that even the smallest person can bite back if you push them too far. We're currently in a legal battle, and the stress is eating us alive, but when I look at my brother, I see a kid who finally found his spine. I see a kid who won't be bullied at school ever again because he knows what he's capable of. The community is divided. Some people say we should have known better than to let him train there, while others are calling Leo a legend and sending us messages of support against Victor's lawsuit. Was it violent? Yes. Was it dangerous? Absolutely. But Viktor Volkov created the monster that took him down. And he has no one to blame but himself for his own public humiliation. He wanted to harden the shell. And he succeeded. He just didn't realize the shell was going to break him in return. The court date is set for next month, and we're preparing for a media frenzy. Victor is demanding a public apology and a massive settlement, but my brother told the lawyer he'd rather go to juvie than apologize to a man who tried to break his spirit for fun. It's a standoff that reflects the world we live in, where the powerful think they can push the weak until they snap, and then cry foul when the weak fight back. This experience taught me that some people only understand the language they use to hurt others, and sometimes, the only way to stop a cycle of abuse is to meet it with a force so shocking it breaks the gears entirely. I've seen the comments online, people calling my brother a hero and others calling him a danger to society, but as his older brother, all I see is a kid who stood up when the world tried to keep him down. I don't regret a single second of that punch. It wasn't just a right hand, it was a statement. It was a declaration that being a pro doesn't give you the right to be a predator. It was a reminder that respect is earned, not beaten into people. As we walk through this fire together as a family, I know we'll come out stronger on the other side. My brother might not be a fighter anymore, but he's definitely not a victim. And that's a trade I'd make every single time. If you think Leo did the right thing by standing up for himself, and that Victor got exactly what he asked for, please hit that like button to show your support for the little guy. It's been a rough week, and we could really use the win. Make sure to subscribe for more stories because believe me, the legal drama with the Viper is far from over, and I'll be updating you on what happens when we finally face him in court. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. Did the pro get what he deserved for bullying a child? Or did my brother go too far? I'll see you all in the next story.